Hello everyone, I'm going to record a quick video showing how I build icons. I'm going to show you my exact process that I use to make Pegasus icon library, and I'm going to be using a new icon grid that I just recently developed. So I'm going to walk you through the process of sizing icons, working with radiuses and strokes and grids, and also getting inspiration for them as well. So let's go ahead and dive in. Alright, so we're on our 24 pixel grid, and we're going to go ahead and start drawing out our basic shapes. So we're going to start with our rectangle tool, and we're going to just start snapping to some grids here. Oh. And let's just do 12 by 14. Bring that down a little bit. And then let's grab this individual point. Put it out there. Alright, that looks about right. And then let's also grab these two bottom points. So we're just kind of double clicking in there and then grabbing specific points, and we'll add a 2 pixel rounding radius basically. So we're taking this from 0 up here in the top right, and we're putting it at 2. There we go. We're going to leave the top kind of sharp because it's going to connect with the lid. And I think that like maybe 6 pixels tall. Yeah. Okay. And then let's bring that down a little bit. Okay. And we're going to also just grab this little guy, bring him in one. Each side. Cool. And go here, round all these corners, and then we're going to duplicate this again. And deselect this item. All right. So I'm just going to go Command C, Command V. Cool. And then I'm going to bring this in a little bit. Say 16 and 4, and then I'm just going to bring this up and bring this down to 3. Bring this into 14. There we go. Okay, so we're starting to get a shape that's looking a little more like a cup, right? Let's zoom out here. Okay. I feel like I want to bring this up and make it a little bit taller. It's a little bit too squatty for how I think a cup should look. So I'm going to select both of these top points and just bring it up 1 pixel and maybe one more so it overlaps. There we go. Okay. And this one. Let's grab these two bottom points. And yeah, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to also just take this up into the right one and up into the left one. Okay. And let's zoom out and take a look at the basic shape of that. No, I think that was a mistake. All right. Now, what we want to do is we want to have a stroke outline for two different shapes. This bottom area, the mug, and then this top area combined. So we're going to do that right now by deselecting and combining these two shapes. So we're just going to hit the combine, and then we're going to remove the fill, and then add a stroke, and I'm going to choose a color that is close to black, and then I'm going to set this to center. So at 24 pixels, I always use, and that's why I have this kind of like max border line right here. It's 22 pixels. So 1 pixel above and 1 pixel below, that's a 2 pixel border, which looks really nice and sharp on a 24 pixel icon. And it's going to look consistent. I'm going to do the same here, set that to center, and then I'm going to take this, I'm going to duplicate this shape, and then I'm going to select by hitting shift and clicking the bottom area of the cup, and then I'm going to go here, I'm going to say subtract selection. Ooh. Not what I wanted. Oh, okay. I have to actually set this to shape fill. There we go. Now I can go subtract selection. All right, cool. And I've just got the bottom piece now. And then I'm going to remove the fill again and add a stroke. So whenever you're combining shapes, it's best just to have a fill and not to mess around with stroke shapes. And then once you're ready, then you can add the stroke to the finished shape. It just works better that way, and it's a little easier. The next thing I want to do is I want to have kind of a label on my coffee mug. So I'm going to go ahead and snap to points here and draw just some basic lines. So that's one. I'm going to deselect so it becomes another layer here. Go back to my pen tool. And again, I'm just using this grid and I'm snapping to specific points so that I know I have good coverage here. And I'm going to be having this line covered by this other stroke line. And again, I want to set it to a consistent color. By default, it'll set it to basically black 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. But I want to make sure that it's in line with the color I'm looking for. All right, so that's that. And then I'm going to add a little circle label. So I'm going to go to ellipse. I'm just going to do, I think, like 4 pixel by 4 pixel. And then I'll go ahead and stroke that as well. Put it to 4, 2 pixels, and of course we're going to do our center. Okay. Now I've got a problem where I want to bring this down one so that my circle label fits a little better. And I can zoom out. Kind of looks like a coffee mug from a distance, doesn't it? Pretty cool. Now I could make this a little more detailed if I wanted to. Like I could add another line up here to make it a tiny bit more realistic. I could also make this, maybe this circle a little bit bigger, which I think looks really nice. It also snaps to those lines pretty well. And yeah, I think that works. That looks like a coffee mug. So we're going to call that one done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this shape, grab all the individual layers, and I'm going to drag it off my canvas now that I know it's going to fit right. And I'm going to group it by going Command G. And I'm going to call this editable coffee. And that's important, right? Because I have all the shapes. If I want to go and modify that, even this combined shape, I could undo that, right, and make modifications if I want to improve the look. So I think it's important to always have a saved copy version of an icon. And then what we'll do is, we'll also look at flattening it so that when you add a color to it or you make this a component, and say you embed it in like a button, and then they switch to another icon. If you have all those layers flattened appropriately, you'll be able to retain a specific color overwrite, as well as you'll be able to add a gradient, and it will smoothly kind of cascade over the entire icon versus having each individual line broken and it restarting the gradient. It'll look really, really bad. Like I could maybe show an example, taking some gradients I might have in Pegasus, and I could just apply that. See how you can kind of see these lines, especially if I zoom in, you'll be able to see. Where is my guy? Okay, there it is. So if I zoom in here, you'll be able to see that while on the surface it looks like it's continual, there's these breaks where you can see the start and the end of a line, which looks really, really bad. And when you put in this into code, it's also gonna be a larger file size, and it's gonna be more complicated basically for the browser to render that. So we want to make sure to flatten that before we're ready to export it out to say an engineer, something like that. So we'll leave that over there, and then we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and show the process of flattening this. So we'll zoom in here, and what we want to do is we want to go into our group, select all of our individual shapes, and then we're going to go up to Object, and it says Flatten Selection. Now it's also, you can do Command E, which is similar to, there was like a Photoshop shortcut to like flatten raster layers. And now you'll see that it's all one layer, right? We don't have all those specific layers. And if we go ahead and do our gradient test again, we select our gradient, and we zoom in, you'll see we now don't have any specific lines, right? So it's more optimized for engineering. It's going to render way better, and we'll be able to do really nice kind of like overwrite effects in CSS and in other manners. So this is your optimized component that you would want to, maybe add to your design system. This is your editable backup. If you want to rehint things, you want to make a bigger icon, you want to kind of start from the original source material, you would do that. So this, you would say, let's call it like final, to use a naming convention you should never use. All right, so we've got our coffee mug icon. Let's go ahead and maybe add another one just for fun. Try some different shapes. So let's try to do something a little more advanced. Let's do a pizza slice. So we're going to start with our ellipses tool. We're going to make a really big circle. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and just take our shape tool, and we're going to snap to the center of this icon grid, and we're going to just draw a triangle. And the first thing we'll notice is it's not shaped like a piece of pizza. It's far too wide, basically. So we want to take these points, and let's go ahead and select this individual point on the left, and we'll go ahead and bring this in a couple of snaps. Okay, maybe 2 more. That looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and go with that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this stroke off because we're about to combine these shapes. We'll set this to purple, and then we've got our gray circle, and we're going to select both our objects by selecting the triangle, holding shift, and then as we hold shift we're going to click the circle shape, or we can do it up in our layers panel too. Now they're both selected. We can see over in our layers panel. We're going to go up to the top to Boolean objects, and we're going to go ahead and click subtract selection. Oh, that's the opposite of what we want to do. So what we want to do is intersect selection. There we go. Now we've got our wonderful pizza slice shape. And that's great, right? But what we also need is our crust. We cannot forget our crust, right, people? So we're going to go ahead and go into that intersect, and we just copy and pasted out that shape. So we did Command C, Command V, and we've got our circle back. Now, why do we need our circle? Let's go ahead and just put a stroke on this for now, just to make it easier to see our line. And do a blue one for fun. There we are. Okay, and we're going to bring this in by selecting the edge of the group, and we're holding shift. Why are we holding shift? Because it's going to make it a perfect circle. But then if we add the command key, then it's going to move this in. Actually, the option is going to move it in from the center. So we're going to proportionally be reshaping this circle. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this out a little bit, right about here. I think at 18 would look right, because right now we've got our stroke on the inside, and if we put it on center, then we should have a nice 2-pixel line and then a 2-pixel line right here. So let's go ahead and do that. And then how are we going to, again, get that in a pizza shape? Well, we're going to take our little triangle slice that we created. We can go into the intersect and then do Command C, Command V, right? And it pastes it again up above. And we're going to go ahead and drag that again above our ellipse. But again, we can't subtract items when we have a stroke. So we're going to take that off again, and we're going to fill it. We'll fill this with like a light blue just so you can see the difference. There we are. Okay. And we've got our circle. We hold shift. We select our triangle. So we now have both objects selected, we can see. And we're going to go to our Boolean groups again. We're going to do intersect selection. And now we've got that little line. We can see it right there. Now, if we add, say, stroke to that object, we'll see that we have kind of this shape, which is not exactly what we want. So how can we fix that? Let's go ahead and do this. We're going to double click on this object, and we get multiple options here. So in this case, what we really want to do is flatten this object. So we're going to right click on it. This is another way to do it. And we can do flatten, or we can do our Command E. Let's go ahead and do our Command E. All right, now it's just one flat shape. Then we can go and select to edit. We can click this top point, and then we can hit our delete key, and boom, that goes completely away. Now we just have the top or the bottom of our slice, depending on the way that you look at it. And we've got a perfect arc that is completely in unison with our pizza shape. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and start making this look more like a pizza. So we're gonna remove our fill. We're going to add our stroke back on. And we're gonna add that in our dark gray again. We'll make sure this one is filled in the same color, and it is off black. Cool. All right. Now let's go ahead and move our pizza shape up a little bit. Okay. And I think we have a pretty good slice. Now there is one problem, and that's that it is very small. Like if we compare this in real size to the coffee mug, we'll see that proportionally it's just a lot smaller. So it does need to grow, right? But we have all this kind of locked in at a perfect proportion. So what are we gonna do? I think we could go ahead and group this, and we'll call it original slice. And that way, if we want to make any changes and keep this exact relationship, we always can go back. So let's drag this off our canvas, and we'll just have this be our little backup for fun. All right, now that we're not afraid of screwing anything up, let's go ahead and make this larger. So we're going to go to the edge of the selection. We've got our complete group. We're going to hold Shift so that we can't unproportionally squash our object. And then we're going to hold Option, and again that's going to kind of drag it out from the center, so we're going to stay centered here. And we're going to let go of all of our keys, and then we can hit our up arrow key just to nudge it a couple of pixels up. And because it's a wider shape, we have this illusion that it's bigger, even though it's not touching the top. As we see it, it's not touching the bottom. Because it's so proportional and wide of an object, it's going to make the illusion that it's actually bigger than it is. So we can kind of like zoom out, right, and kind of look at it compared to our coffee, and I'm feeling like it's a pretty good shape actually as far as the sizing is concerned. All right, now what good is pizza without pepperoni, right? Well, that's maybe debatable. But in this case, we want it to be instantly recognized, and a lot of times when people think of pepperoni pizza, they think of like a New York slice, or maybe a Neapolitan or something like that. So let's go ahead and draw out some pepperoni sausages here for fun. So we're going to make one a little bit bigger than the other. So let's try one with like 3-pixel circle. We'll put that one over here, and then we'll make another one. I'm just going to go Control C, Control V, and I'm going to hold Shift again, grab the corner, and make this one a little bit larger. And then let's grab both of our slices. We're holding Shift, just clicking both of them, get them both selected. And then, yeah, I'm going to get rid of this fill, because again, remember, we want 2-pixel stroke on everything to be consistent. I'm going to click that off black, not inside, but centered. And we're going to want to make that 2 pixels. Okay, so there we go. We've got our pepperoni slices. What's the problem? Well, they're extending outside of our pizza, so that's kind of an issue. So let's go ahead and select both of these here. Let's make sure that we have this object. Yeah, it doesn't have 2-pixel radius. There we go. Maybe something was looking a little off there. Okay, so let's grab both of our pepperoni slices here, and we're going to go ahead and combine these shapes. Unison. Boom. Actually, let's undo that for a second. We do want to fill these real quick because we're about to do a cropping operation. So we'll go ahead and, just for fun, let's make them red. And there they are. And whenever we do an operation, I like to go to the original cropping shape. That's this vector 5 that we're working with. And we're going to go ahead and bring these up here. And we've got our 2 pepperonis, so let's combine those into one shape. And we're going to select then our unison. Actually, let's go here and just go ahead and flatten these for fun. And then we're going to grab these 2 shapes, and we're going to say Subtract selection. Nope. Did it wrong again. Intersect selection. There we go. Okay, now we've got our cropped pepperoni slice. And we can get rid of our fill. We can go back to our lovely stroke. 2 pixels, centered. Yep, that's good. Centered, 2 pixels. All right. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our icon. We can go to our frame, and I can turn off my icon grid just to kind of look at it on its own. You can zoom out a bit. Kind of looks like a slice of pizza. Huh? You could also do like a watermelon, pretty similar to this. Maybe make some teardrop shapes, make a circle, and then remove the radiusing on the top of the 4 corners and make like these little teardrop shapes. You can make a watermelon, right? That would be kind of fun too. All right, so I think we've got a pretty good thing going on with our pizza. So I'm gonna go ahead and group that. And I'm gonna name this editable pizza slice. All right, and as always, I'm going to drag this over, and I'm going to copy it, and then we're going to make our final flattened object. So I'm just going to take everything and just go Command E. Boom, it's a vector now. So final copy. Yeah, that's grouped. I can ungroup that, to be honest. I'm going to call this coffee cup and pizza slice. Okay, so we've got 2 icons in our icon set, and I'm going to go ahead and just return this back to its non-gradient self. Go to the very top. Okay, got our dark gray. Boom. All right, we're good. And just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and group this and hide it just so it's not in our way or distracting us. Okay, and we're going to turn back on our icon grid. Boom. All right. Now, you might be wondering, that's great. How would I make this larger? Say I want to add this to some large web buckets, and 24 pixels, you know, real size is going to be about this size. So they're going to be indistinguishable. I need them to be bigger. Can't I just take these icons and enlarge them? And you can. You absolutely can. But you're going to see what the problem is as soon as I do that. So let's go ahead and paste in our pizza slice. Paste in centered. That's so nice. And let's go ahead and just go ahead and take this whole object, and I'm going to drag out holding shift, and then I'm going to add command, so it drags out from the center, and boom, we'll make this like 56 by 50 pixels. Now when we zoom out, if we put this on a website, the thing we're going to notice is that this line may or may not be thick enough to stand up to the branding guidelines that we have laid out for the rest of the website. So what is pretty common is just sort of boost that up a bit. And you might have some different colors, right? Maybe this is like an Italian pizza restaurant website, and so, you know, the pizza slice, maybe you've got like a red and yellow or, you know, tan color theme. Now it's going to be able to kind of be strong enough to be at that size and to make sense. And you may need to also re-hint some of these. So if they're kind of looking blurry or having some issues with anti-aliasing, sometimes you can take and kind of like finesse these individual points, make sure they snap to a certain size. Now in this case, we've got everything on whole pixels, so it's looking pretty good. But if you wanted to, that's where these original edited you know, files would come into play, because you could actually resize these. And if this is like 19.5 pixels, you could make it 20, or if it's, you know, 23, you could make it 24, right? And you could snap this to a perfect size increment. Also, you know, for going way down in size, there may be some levels of detail that just don't quite come through on such a small icon. So let's look at what you might want to do if that were to happen and be the case. All right, I'm going to go ahead and lock this layer so I don't drag it around. And I'm going to take this whole icon and shrink it down. Okay, wow, we can see some problems here already. Big problems, right? For one, the stroke is, instead of being too thin, it's just too thick to stand up. It's blurring altogether and it's having issues. And then you'll see some of the complexity, even at 24 pixels, you cut that in half, it's going to have some real problems. So what do we want to do? Well, let's try to remove some of that complexity actually. So in this case, you know, first of all, we want to take the original editable files because these ones that are flattened are going to be a real pain for us to actually make changes to. So we do editable coffee, Control C, Control V, and I'm going to bring that out of its group that's hidden. Boom, there you are. And I'm going to Command X to cut it, select my frame, Command V to paste, and then I'm going to grab a corner, again Shift and Option, drag in from the center proportionally. Okay, a little blurry mess, so let's reduce that down to 1 pixel, and then let's remove some of these lines here. So I'm going to just start clicking in. I'm going to find these layer objects, this line here, and I'm going to click Delete key to remove it. I could also, if I'm having issues, I can go over here and find the shape and remove it. And this doesn't look quite centered anymore, so I might also bring this ellipse just like up 1 pixel. Not quite. Okay, let's try making this a little bit bigger. A lot of this is kind of, you know, trial and error. You might have to move things around and just see how it looks and how it feels. Okay. All right, and let's bring it up 1. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, again, we've got these kind of like half pixel increment issues up here. So let's get into our shape and see if there's anything we can do about that. Here we'll see that we've got some odd sizing going on here. So let's make this an even 8 pixels wide and an even 3 pixels tall. Okay, now we can work to center this. I'm going to hold Shift so I don't move it accidentally in the wrong direction. Okay, now that's centered. How about this cup? Ooh, we've got some weird sizes going on here too. Let's do this 6 by the height 7 pixels. That's fine, as long as they're whole pixels. That's what really matters. And so on 3 pixel, 4. Okay, now we'll see everything. See how the lines are now snapping together nicely? It's really, really important. We can also just, you know, we can modify things as we go if it doesn't look right. It's completely fine. Here we've got some really, really wonky sizes. So I'm going to work to make that a little more normalized. 6 and 5. Okay, and then we're going to bring it over 1. Alright, so this one we're going to probably either have to make this smaller or we're going to have to put it on a half pixel. So in this case, I'm just going to make it a little smaller because that's easier. And then we've got this radius, which is really intense. 2 pixels is actually too much given this object's size. So I'm going to go ahead and now try to edit this. Let's see what happens here. Ooh, I moved it. Undo. Okay. Okay, so it says mixed. Extend, let me see here. There we go. Okay, so I select this one. 2 pixels. Let's make that 1. Much better. Yeah, 2 at 12 pixels is it's just a little extreme for what we're looking to do. And this is kind of just a game you've got to play. There's no, there are like shortcuts that you learn, there are little hacks and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it is hard work, and there's really no way specifically around that being the case. So it kind of is what it is. Okay, and I might have to pull this out just for a second. I'm going to pull this out of its subtract group just so I can get to this corner, because it's being a real pain. Goodness. Alright. Let's pull this completely out and see what happens here. Or this. There we go. Okay. That's better. Alright, and then we'll drag it back in. Okay. Cool. And then we're going to drag it into its subtract group. Alright, finally this is looking a little bit normal here. 6, 7, 4, and 4. Okay. Bring it over. Alright. Goodness gracious, I think we're finally in a better spot. And this one I'm just going to reduce it down to 1. Reduce this down to 1. And with that, sometimes reassembling these shapes can be a little bit tricky. So sometimes it's easier just to almost like start over. Alright, and union of these two and then subtracted. Something in here got really wonky, so I'm just going to go ahead and select the top group, hold Shift, Command, and G, and that's going to ungroup these set of objects. So now I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to try to see, okay, that's kind of funky. I think I've somehow got two sets of lids. There we go. Alright. Alright, let's back out of this and see what it looks like. And alright, good. Let's grab our coffee mug, paste that in. Awesome. Okay, so we can see that at smaller sizes, it's sort of necessary to, let me turn these off. It's sort of necessary to start reducing complexity, because when you have too much complexity, it just gets really unclear and confusing as far as what's going on and trying to be displayed. So there you have it. There's how to make icons that snap to 24 pixel grid, 12 pixel grid, and a 64 pixel grid. You learned a little bit about scaling strokes and how to kind of make saving group changes at the editable level, and then how to get ready to export objects. So the last bit I would say is selecting your group objects, which you can do kind of one at a time, or if you've named them properly, you can select multiples, and when you hit export, it'll say exporting 2 layers. And then if you want to export this to developers, SVGs would be your best option, right? And you can just simply export those layers. And this is going to provide a file that, let's go ahead and look at one. Let's go to Documents. Okay, so we've got these files, and what we can do is we can open our Chrome, just open a new browser window, and we can drag in our file, and boom, look at that, there's our little coffee cup. And if we go and inspect, we're going to see the actual real live code, and there it is. There's the SVG code. And while this may look like it's kind of confusing and quite a bit, it's actually quite simple compared to a lot of different objects. So you can see that there's not a lot of extraneous extra tags. It's really actually clean code, which is a big testament to Figma's ability to process and to just give you the things that you really need. The other thing you can do, if you select just the pizza slice, you can also get some of the information of the CSS styling, such as the color of the border, the height and width, the position, things like that. And then if you switch this from CSS to iOS, you'll kind of get that iOS if you're doing a mobile app or Android app. So that's kind of fun. As well as just the raw properties. If you switch from this code button, you toggle over here to table. All right, so that's that. With this exported code, you could actually turn this into a React component. You could change these out for props. So you could actually overwrite different sizes, overwrite different fill colors. You could do CSS gradient overlays for different themings. So if you get this all the way out to code, there's quite a bit that you can do to make these icons kind of come to life. I hope this has been helpful for you all, and have fun in your icon adventures. Take care.